Yeah, so just slight repetition, we're going to discussing very much how to leverage technology through ChatGTP and outsource parts of your business to increase profitability. We've talked in previous weeks about, obviously this graphic is more around people who are property investing, but a lot of the general principles still apply in that particular case about acquiring assets to generate income. But actually that's fundamentally what we sort of believe in, very much part of the Wealth Growth Club. So a very quick intro for myself. I'm the founder of Wealth Growth Club. It's been running for about 3 years. Prior to that, I've done probably over 100 live streams as well. And moving on a little bit from that, what we've been talking about over the last year or so is the fundamentals that Robert Kiyosaki talks about, based around the cash flow quadrant. And without getting too repetitive over this, fundamentally, if you're in a job which is the top left-hand quadrant, where you're not able to really leverage your time for money, or if you own your own business, which is his wording, he's talking about more in the context of self-employment there. He makes the point that you can't leverage time. Actually, when the book was written, it was probably 15, 20 years ago. The world's changed a lot since then. And actually, I think even as a sole business owner, you can leverage time now, which you couldn't do a few years ago. But the panacea really is being the two right-hand quadrants, which is either as a business owner where you've started to use people and systems to be able to leverage and grow, or you're in the investor quadrant, the bottom right quadrant, where you've been able to acquire a number of different types of assets, whether it's property, where it's creating IP, whether it's basically setting up a franchise, where it's setting up a software as a service, which may be based on a subscription model. If you're predominantly in a model where you're investing assets to create recurring revenue stream, then you're in the bottom right-hand quadrants. Now, typically, most people are usually in two quadrants. But if you can position yourself so you're on the two right-hand quadrants, then so much the better. So we talked about it in previous weeks, and this ties in very much around this whole area about acquiring income-generating assets, finding ways of reducing your monthly costs, therefore increasing your disposable income, and then, where possible, use leverage to then acquire more assets and rinse and repeat. If you can create that, you've got almost the ultimate wealth building machine. So basically, a big question to ask yourself, we touched on this last week again, we're going to move on to new content in just a moment, is really how resilient is your business? So I think most of us probably agree that whilst things haven't been great over the last 2 or 3 years, at least we haven't had a major recession probably for 10 to 15 years, which is a bit unusual actually, because typically we have a significant recession every 10 years or so. So in terms of our business, we should always be building contingency in there, and we should be able to respond to peaks and troughs and basically have a lean, mean fighting machine, if I can put it that way. We're going to actually debate this a little bit more in just a moment. Sorry, let me just let someone else in. And sort of moving on from that, what I would like to focus on a little bit more this week is really understanding more about your personal and business growth goals. Are they aligned? Do you want to grow your business, but are costs are too high? Are the costs perhaps growing disproportionately to the revenue in your business? Is your growth and scaling your business becoming elusive? And are you hitting that invisible glass ceiling? You can get to a point where a business perhaps either stagnates, or if it does grow, that the costs grow disproportionately, in which case you can find it very, very difficult to break through. And obviously, under the whole principles of the sort of cash flow quadrant and creating a growing scalable business, if you've got a well-oiled machine, you should be in a position where, if anything, your costs proportionate to your income reduces over time, rather than actually increases disproportionately. And if it's increasing disproportionately, it typically means there are some fundamental things which you need to change in your business. Because if you go and pick up a large client, you may find it, rather than your business thriving and growing, it can be the part that actually sort of breaks you. So this is now a little bit of a breakout session. I think what I'm really keen to do here, and obviously if people can switch the cameras on, that'd be great, because it just makes it a little bit more personal. Obviously, if it's difficult for you to do so, I understand, but where possible, try and switch your cameras on, and that way we call interject and interact. So this week, it'd be really good to understand. We switch the screen, showing off for a moment. There we go, without disconnect everyone. It'd be really good to understand where people's perhaps pinch points are in their business, and then we're going to sort of focus a lot more on some of the solutions around that in just a moment. Again, if people can switch the cameras on, it'd be really appreciated. Obviously, it's not compulsory, but if you can, it'd be great. Andrew, can I start with you, if that's all right? First of all, can you just give a very quick intro, like a 30-second intro into your business, and also what you perhaps found has been a pinch point in it, if I can put it that way?
Yeah, so I have a condiment sauce business. I've been going since 2013. And I started off with 4 ketchups, basically. One with no chili, one with gentle chili, and medium and hot. And I've been sort of running that business through sort of 2013 right the way up to 2019. And I've been doing farmers markets. I've been doing food festivals. I've done a couple of big shows like the Ideal Home Show that's brought in some reasonable revenue. I've been in Morrison's for a small amount of time. Well, I'd say small amount of time, about 2 to 3 years, but it wasn't growing with them, I'm afraid. And so consequently, the tiny margins that they would give me meant that, I was expecting to go into more stores, and I was in the Southeast. I went into basically 14 stores. However, I had to deliver myself, I had to restock the shelves myself. It wasn't going central. So I was just trying to get exposure, really brand exposure more than anything. And after 3 years, I didn't see any further growth, and they changed their structure of their sales team as well for local sourcing, and there was little to no communication with them. So I felt I was going nowhere, so I pulled out of Morrison's, basically.
Right. But actually, at the time, it was clearly a very sensible business decision to take. And it's really interesting with big supermarkets, because sometimes they can have such high expectations of you and your business, and it can really break a small business if they're just not able to. First of all, grow with that opportunity, but also perhaps the margins they expect you to operate on are just far too low for what you need to achieve. So, Andrew, that's a very good insight, actually. It's a good one to lead with, so thank you for that. Mike, are you to give us like a 15-30-second introduction into your business, and also what you say your biggest pinch point is as well?
Okay, business is a software business. We sell mobile application globally. It addresses the field workers who work in digging up pipes and cables and wrecking the roads, and it's a mobile solution that uses augmented reality to show where the underground pipes and cables are, so people can try and avoid creating collateral damage when they dig anything up, and also avoid getting electrocuted or injured.
Okay.
The biggest pinch point really is when it's small. It's a very lumpy cash flow, so cash flow management is the biggest deal.
Right. Okay. Excellent. And is there any part of your business which, when you try and grow and scale, where your cost base perhaps can increase disproportionately to your revenue? Are there certain parts which you have to keep a really close eye on in your business, apart from cash flow?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
But maybe, we have really distributed the sales and some of the marketing activities to our partners. We have partners in many parts of the world, so they actually do the local sales.
Right. Okay. Whereabouts are you, Mike?
The company's based here in Auckland, New Zealand.
Right. Yeah, you joined us was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, I think?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, great. And so it's 7 o'clock in the morning over there at the moment. Is it about?
Yeah, just after 8 o'clock. Yes, that's fine.
Right. Okay. Oh, so semi-respectable. Yeah, good.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Glad you've been able to make it. We've also got Ian here with us. Welcome, Ian. Would you mind just answering the same sort of questions, if that's okay? Look, brief intro about yourself, but also your biggest pinch point if you're looking to grow your business. You're muted, Ian.
You're quite right. I was muted.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you.
Apologies for that. Yeah, I guess my circumstances are somewhat different to everyone else, in that I have just sold my business, and that was in automotive data. Data both to calculate costs for vehicles, both for quotation purposes, for leasing companies, for example, for motor dealers in the point of sale, data to support vehicles on websites, and also registered vehicle data, all the data around vehicles that are actually on the road as well. So without going into absolute detail, it gives you a flavour that as to what I have been involved with. And that was a business that I started about 12 years ago and sold at the end of last year. Throughout my career, I've been in automotive, and I've probably covered every sector you can dream up in the automotive industry, from manufacturers to dealers, to fleet management, to leasing companies, daily rental, and latterly data as well. So that's where I'm at. If I'm honest, Rupert, I actually thought that this evening was about ChatGPT.
It's a bit later on.
Oh, fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And I really do feel I want to be on the pulse with regard to that.
Great.
Plus, I'm not looking for anything full time at the moment, but I am sort of I have got a small involvement in probably working with one company, but just a little bit where I can use my experience, shall we say.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. And you're based somewhere in the UK, judging by your accent, are you? Whereabouts are you based?
Yes, I'm based in Sussex.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm in Kent, so only probably half an hour from you, probably, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, I can share exactly where with you, but for people elsewhere in the world, it will be boring for us to talk about that now.
No, that's lovely. That's good. That's good. A very good synopsis. Right. One more. Valerie, are you in a position to speak? No. Okay. Right.
Hold on. Yes, I had to reset my Wi-Fi. So.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
So Valerie, very quickly, very brief introduction in terms of what you do, like 15, 20 seconds. And also, what would you say is your biggest pain point if you're looking to grow?
Well, there's a family business that was started about 5 years ago with my sister in organic drinks.
Oh, right.
Yes. So through COVID, we had to ride that out. It's not a shop front thing. It's a online business. So we've scaled it to that. So yeah, otherwise to that, I do community stuff really.
Okay.
Outside of that, yeah.
Okay, so when you try to grow, is there a particular...
I'm not sure about grow. I think it's a flooded market, organic drinks, with herbs and stuff. So we're looking at other flavors from different countries and supplying that. That's what we're looking at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Valerie.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Right. Well, that's been very insightful, actually. And what's been really encouraging tonight is actually hearing people from different backgrounds as well, because I think we all get much greater insight when that's the case. And it'll become apparent why we've particularly focused on a couple of things as part of that discussion. And this next part really is about focusing on business growth. Now, we have had particular sessions. In fact, last week we actually talked a bit about how to grow and scale your business using systems. And this might be computer-based systems, it might be automation, it might be using software, but I'm also using the word systems fairly generically, because if you look at McDonald's years ago, when the famous Knowles brothers were running it before Ray Kroc got involved, what Ray Kroc identified was that they were masters not just producing beef burgers, but actually creating systems which are incredibly efficient. And I think there's a lot of learning to be had from that. And ultimately, if you want to be in the top right-hand quadrant, in addition to being able to use, work really well with your workforce and your teams, it's also about having really good systems in place so you can grow and scale. So we talked about that last week, so I'm not going to cover that so much this week. This is moving on really to the topic for today, which is really about how to leverage technology, in particular ChatGTP, and how you can outsource parts of your business to increase your profitability. Fundamentally, what we want to do as well is to help people to get more done in less time at lower cost. And obviously, this is what we class as our time machine. It's a way of helping people to time travel. And as we talked about last week about strong systems, and this week we talk about leveraging technology and outsourcing by using virtual PAs to give you growth at lower cost, and to give ourselves the same advantage that much larger organizations have with unlimited resources. So this is mainly just focusing on some of the key benefits of using ChatGTP. Now, there's not just ChatGTP, obviously there's lots of other variants around, including what the Chinese have recently released as well. But where it can be really good is helping you to resolve personal problems or understand medical issues. Now, that could be more personally based. Obviously, you have to be a bit careful what you share in there, but nevertheless, you can actually get some really, really good information back based on what you put in. It can also be really good for what I class as deep market research. So we all, have no doubt many times gone into Google to do research about different things and spent hours, days, or even weeks trying to research opportunities in markets or problems we might face or opportunities that we could potentially do. A lot of this now, if you describe what you would like to know clearly to ChatGTP, and the devil is in the way you ask the question, you'll be really surprised at the information you get back. Now, sometimes it needs a bit of coaxing because it misunderstands you or your question is too open. or sometimes it gets it wrong, so you do always have to validate it. But nevertheless, something which might have taken you days to do before, sometimes you can do it in little as an hour, and sometimes much quicker than that. You can also use it to put together, say, a marketing plan. You would describe your business to ChatGTP, and you would say who are your ideal target clients, obviously indicate where you're based, and ChatGTP will actually start to put together the basis of a marketing plan for you, and indeed some suggested strategies for reaching your ideal target clients. So it seems to have quite a bit of logical processing in there, or element of intelligence that's programmed into it. So again, you'll be staggered what actually comes back. It can also help you to create your products portfolio. You may have got what you class as a product for prospects and basically a core product, but you might try to be thinking about other products that might appeal to your market. Again, by asking ChatGTP those type of questions, again, you can really get some really good insights. You can also use it for content ideas. So, for example, you may have done some research. I mean, Renato is a good case in point, actually. Renato is always finding pieces of information out there, which he shares willingly in the group. If you were to take some of that content, upload it to ChatGTP, and ask it to further analyze what it's found, and then possibly even write some content for you, which you could then basically redistribute and publish. It's very good at actually taking that and basically repurposing it and doing it in minutes or even seconds, rather than something that might take hours or even days of time to actually do. And when you look at the content, you would think, crikey, it appears to be really, really original, the way it's been written. You can change the tonality of the language. So, for example, I've used the words create content ideas and copywriting. You could turn around to ChatGTP and say, I want the message to be much more personal. Can you write it in a you or your context? Or could you write it as if the audience they're writing for a 10-year-old? You might have got, for example, very heavily into scientific research, and you've got to produce something which has got to be understood by a wider group of people. So you can get it to recreate the content in a form which should be understood by ordinary people. You can also convert text documents into marketing copy, which is highly optimized for SEO. So it'll put all the relevant keywords in there for you. You can actually write the web copy for you, and you can ask it to then save it in a Word format or HTML, or even get it to do some coding. The other thing is, you probably notice here I've used lots of photorealistic images. Those images have been created by the ChatGTP. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. And sometimes you end up by literally having arguments with it, because it might come up with a lovely picture of a couple, for example, that you may want to feature, or someone working on a computer screen. And sometimes you find they've got an extra limb, for example, or an extra foot or a leg. Or you might find they keep on putting people in suits when you want people to be casually dressed. So you can sometimes end up by wrestling with it a little bit at times. But nevertheless, for producing images, very, very quickly, and then finding something which, is certainly good enough for getting generally out there, it's great. And it's also can be a way that it avoids potential copyright infringement, because interestingly, I think someone posted in the group, I'm not sure it was, but there was basically, it's not foolproof. This, for example, if you had an image, say, let's say it was a nice stock photo you found, and you upload it and said, ChatGTP, can you create a completely new image based around this concept? ChatGTP would do its best to try and come up with alternatives for you. Now, again, quite often the images are not great. There's a lot of things in there which probably are not what you would expect. But what you'll find is for every 10, perhaps 5 or 10 you come up with, probably one is half decent. And because obviously it's original, it's unlikely to be an issue of copyright infringement. Obviously, that's not coming from a lawyer, by the way, so don't take what I'm saying too literally. But if you apply an element of common sense, it can enable you to get some really quite nice imagery quite quickly without having to worry about that. I just seen Renata's published here something. So Mike, pretty much earlier. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's
things from Mike Rupert, which is why I put it in the chat there, of what was happening with the underground pipes that you used to be able to find, like with a metal detector or significant clay volume. But now that they're plastic, they put RFID tags in the latest ones, so you can read them with a sensor above them, and it tells you the history, who owns them, who put them there. Right.
Well, that's very powerful. I can see the benefits of that straight away.
Yes, but the it is the important bit, Rupert, of course, my reference to ChatGTP there.
Right.
And
Okay.
then we know that when we use these engines, we're contributing to their learning. So you remember I mentioned before, be very careful to read the small print, because if you're modeling your best kept secrets of your business expansion plan, be wary if that information becomes the property of the engine you've used, and then your research and best kept secrets are fed back to others when they ask similar questions.
Yes, and there has been a bit of controversy about that particular point, hasn't there? So I think, like anything else, you just have to be.
That's it. Yeah, because I know a lot of companies, especially in the medical and defense world, that do the learning in the public domain, but when they've got to a certain stage, they move it to the internal domain and say, any further learning is with our own data set. We're not exposing it to the outside world.
Right, yes. In fact, it's interesting as well, because I haven't actually looked at this. I want to look at it. The Chinese have come up with an equivalent. Is it DeepSeek? Is it called DeepSeek?
Yes.
Yeah. And apparently with DeepSeek, because the actual model is actually much smaller, it's actually possible to upload it to your own desktop computer. It'd be like a cut down version of it. But because you can use it in such a way that the information actually doesn't leave your servers, that's the point it's going to try and make. It's got a lot of the logical reasoning in there. If you use the cloud-based version of that, of course, it doesn't really apply. It's got the same problems that, say, ChatGTP would have. But yes, I mean, that's a big topic in its own right, isn't it? So thanks for that, Sir Renato.
I'd just quickly like to make a comment on ChatGPT. I mean, I've been using both DeepSeek R1 and ChatGPT 04.
Oh, have you? Right.
And ChatGTP will often give you very, very incomplete answers. So a quick one yesterday I just wanted a quick list of all the councils in New Zealand with their contact details, phone numbers, website. There are 78 in New Zealand, and it came up with 13.
Right.
And I then had to give it the list of 78, and then it started complaining.
Right.
And I thought, come on, this is ridiculous.
What complaining in what context? It was.
I didn't want to give me all the data.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, and so whereas honestly, the R1 model from DeepSeek is far superior.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, and also gives a complete answer, properly formatted. In this case, I wanted it as a CSV file, and it was properly formatted, fully populated. So compared to ChatGPT, it was like an order of magnitude better, and it was complete.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had heard things like this, but I suppose the thing is, it's like ChatGTP. It's trying to go by publicly available information.
That particular one was all publicly available. What I was just trying to do was just speed up the process by factor.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
But where ChatGPT is quite good, GTP is quite good, is we use it for software development. So you can say what the algorithms are or the structure is, and it just generates the code for you, and it's very fast and pretty accurate. You just have to check it and test it, but it is generally very good.
Yeah. Oh, that's really encouraging. And there are so many different models within ChatGTP itself, aren't there? So, for example, on the imagery side, you use a different plugin to actually get it to create the images for you. So that's really insightful. Thank you, Mike, for that. That's really helpful. So moving on a little bit from that. Obviously, this is more focusing now on the value of outsourcing in scaling your business, and around that, I'll give you a few examples where we've perhaps helped people previously. Let me just let some more people in here. Give me a second. Is basically in these areas. So examples that we've actually helped people with before are helping people to run social media, live chat, and email inquiries, and with bookkeeping, invoicing, and management production. Also, you've got things like video editing could be very time intensive, and we've seen people who can actually help with that, and article writing. And then also you've got things like time and diary management, hotel bookings of Airbnb, lettings management, and also data cleansing. And in terms of the virtual PA services that we've been running, we've got over 5 years of experience in that. We've literally helped hundreds of small businesses leverage their sales, particularly through LinkedIn. And that's using a combination of technology and also our people resource. We work very closely with a charity called PayPal Giving. It's a charitable arm of PayPal. Work with a lot with charities. So we're given the task of cleaning up 7,000 charity records, which got very inconsistent, and also making sure those charities still existed as well. We've also worked with the client serving the academy trusts and schools. That was about 15,000 records. We actually created a database for them, which they were able to, which was enriched based on all the data that we'd able to find for them. We've also, this is mainly for ourselves, but we've created about 150 hours worth of video content, which actually quite a bit of it's on our YouTube channel over the last 5, 6, 7 years as well. And some of that is using our team. Some of it, obviously, a lot of the time I was perhaps involved in the presentation of it. I won't sort of read all these out, but these are some of the market sectors which are ideal for being to use it for outsourcing. And some of those you might well relate to. Obviously, like anything else, we have different people with different levels of standards and expertise, which we can plug into particular projects. And then so moving on a little bit from there, this is much more talking about the scheduling organization, travel recruitment, bookkeeping, financial planning, client communication side. And then a little bit further on from that, people may need help with order processing, task management, reporting and risk assessments, data cleansing, data enrichment, and also data management and optimization. So like anything else, it's all about just trying to understand where people's challenges are and what they want to try and streamline and be able to take it from there. So what I'm going to do is have a little bit more of a mini breakout session now. So let me just switch this off for a moment. And what would be really good to understand is, again, if people can switch the cameras on and make it a little bit more fun, if that's possible. Welcome, Eric. It's nice to see you on the call, by the way. Yeah, good. So does anyone want to tell me of any particular, for example, we talked about some of the challenges you face in business, particularly when you start to try and scale, and perhaps what you put in place to deal with that. Are there some areas in your business which, for example, which may not be high-grade tasks, there might be tasks where there's a lot of routine and a lot of repetition, where you feel there could be elements which could be outsourced, rather than perhaps trying to do it all yourself. So with that in mind, Ian, I don't know if you've got any thoughts or ideas on this. Be interested to get your ideas. I know you're totally retired now, haven't you? So
well, yes. So no, I don't buy it, but I'm on the page with you with regard to outsourcing. Many I'm talking decades ago now. I was actually responsible for administering and running the first outsourcing that any vehicle manufacturer did with regard to Ford Motor Company, and it was outsourcing the management of the vehicles they put into the rental industry, and then it was actually running their fleet demonstrators for them. So they were outsourcing. That was an early example, and no manufacturer had done anything like that at the time. It set a trend, and others followed, and they outsourced subsequently. So I'm with you. I'm on the page about outsourcing, just the scale of it and the efficiency, and you can become the expert on it as well. And the business that's outsourced, whatever it's outsourcing, can focus on its core business, that are the things that create its product or actually make its profit, rather than being digressing into administrative tasks. Yeah, so I'm with you completely.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So the big learning from that really was it enabled the companies to redeploy a lot of its services to areas where it required a lot of expertise, and the parts which are more routine, they was able to outsource and get a cost-saving benefit with that.
A car manufacturer is in the business of designing, making, and marketing or selling cars. Yeah. They're not in the business of administering fleets, or so it allows the business to concentrate on its core, where it's actually really going to make the money.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, we just quickly we outsource marketing and accounts.
Okay.
And then obviously we work with distribution partners globally for other territories. So
right, yeah. Good. And obviously, again, I would imagine you're working internationally rather than just in New Zealand. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I try not to jump on the plane as much as I used to do.
Yeah, quite understandably. Okay, James, have you got something you wanted to add here in terms of?
Not a lot, I'm afraid. We outsource a lot of our stuff, so all of our marketing is outsourced, and when it comes to leads, we use a number of different agencies to get those. And as I mentioned before, that's a mixed bag. So it's some of the outsourcings work well, and some of it hasn't really been so good.
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot of it is also about finding the right people to do the outsourcing too, but also being tightly managing the team as well that are involved in those projects, isn't it? And sometimes it's not always in your gift or control there to do it, I guess, is it? So
right.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thank you, Andrew. Do you want to add something to that?
Well, yeah, I've kind of gone the other way really, because I used to outsource my fulfillment. So any orders I got through my website, they would go directly to a fulfillment company up in the Midlands, and they would fulfill it for me. The problem was that one, obviously they have to take a margin out of what I'm getting for the product, but also they were making mistakes as well. And I also didn't actually have a facility near me where I could actually do it myself. So even though I'm just a small business, I actually brought it back to my own storage facility where I can fulfill myself. I know everything's done properly. I keep that margin myself, and the business is still growing through the marketing that I'm doing.
Yeah, good. And that's a really good example as well, isn't it? Because it can be difficult to get it right. And that, I think, one of the things that's the way we set this up, as far as we're concerned, is that's why there's also very much a UK presence. So in other words, people could have the reassurance of knowing that there is a proper interface, with the client to make sure that what work needs to be done is being done to the correct standard. So thank you. That's really good. What we'll do is have probably one more and then we move on. Eric, is there something you would like to add to this? I know you probably missed the beginning part of the conversation, didn't you? Because I know you were on another webinar before joining.
Yeah, I did miss the beginning, unfortunately, but I might catch up. Sounds like a really interesting meeting. So in terms of outsourcing, when I used to be a professional speaker, I always I would always perform data capture, and in the old school, I would pass a sheet around and people would put their email address and their phone number, and that way I could get their compliance. So I had stacks and stacks of these papers with people's contact details on it, and I outsourced it to some virtual assistant, and she came back and it was all put on a spreadsheet exactly as I required and as I requested. I didn't do anything with it for a while, and then after a while I started using it, and I realized that she had made loads of mistakes.
Right, really?
Loads and loads and loads of mistakes. And it was too late. I had paid her, and some time had passed. And then she could always just say, oh, they didn't write clearly. It was illegible, or there was a mistake. They made the mistake. So that was a lesson learned. It probably would have been much better had I taken the time and just done it myself. So
I think it can be like that. A lot of it, quite often, this is where sort of management control comes in quite heavily as well. Because, for example, we use technology as well to check up on all the work with something called Time Doctor. What it enables you to do is to actually, it does a screen, it's all with the person's consent, but it does a screen grab every 10 minutes of what they do. So one of the things that we ask our office manager, as it were, to do out there is to back check work that's being done to make sure it's all being done in accordance with the agreed standards with the client. And that's really, really important for the reasons you highlight. But yeah, it's these things can be frustrating when you get a challenge like that. But thank you.
The other thing, I'm just quickly, I'm involved in designing and delivering high-end luxury escapes at stately homes and castles here in Scotland, and we're outsourcing the marketing for that. It's not my forte, so I'm not going to pretend I know how to do that and leave it to other professionals. Yeah,
that's a good idea. So moving on a little bit, we're at the final few minutes now. Just give me a second. Get back here again. Yeah, there we go. I think you can see it. So let me just got it here. Right. So hopefully that breakout session was quite helpful. I thought I'd also just show an illustration here, actually, as well. If the cost of employing someone, say in the UK, unfortunately, our dearly beloved Chancellor, understandably, because the UK economy is in a complete mess, which is they obviously inherited to a degree as well, has further added to this, really. But if you took someone on a base salary of £17,000 a year, and then you added employers' national insurance. Now, I've taken the rate as from April this year rather than being now, because it's actually going up in April. If we then took in the employer's pension contributions, which I believe the minimum that an employer is supposed to contribute is 3%. If you also then take into account, as a statutory minimum, employers have to give at least 28 days holiday a year, the actual cost of employing someone at 17,000 a year is actually £21,890. So in other words, what someone's wages bill is, you're having to add about just under 29% every year for employing that resource. And that excludes having to pay things like sick pay, training costs, maternity, paternity pay, and also dealing with issues which may resolve around employment rights. Now, don't get me wrong. I think as much as possible we should offer people in the UK every opportunity. But the main thing I want to point out here, unfortunately, everything is so heavily loaded. If we look at taxation for us as individuals, we might think we're actually paying 25 or 35 or 40% tax, but actually, in real terms, the average is probably, even for a basic tax rate, taxpayer is 50%. So the cost of actually taking people on in this country there's a very big hidden cost with that as well. And it's, this is where I think it gets frustrating, because companies do want to grow and scale, and there are certain things there which are just really holding companies back. Now, obviously, just a little bit more about what we're doing. Basically, is what we're saying is, if part of a package is that obviously we can provide mentoring, coaching support, also give people guidance on how to use things like ChatGTP, obviously a hands-on approach. Obviously, we've used a bit of a caption there. Basically, your wish is our command. We've got someone actually at the coalface in the Philippines who is she speaks really good English. Also, I hate to say it, she writes English better than most English people does, and she's also very good at helping me to manage the resource over there. And we've created some fast start options as well. So kind of everything we do is backed by a 30-day total satisfaction money-back guarantee. It's all about instilling confidence, and obviously that is a bit tongue-in-cheek again over this name. Eric, you might have missed that bit we covered earlier on. And basically, if someone is curious about using outsourcing and being able to use virtual PAs, what I would suggest is, if you wanted to book a 30-minute discovery call with me, obviously there's no cost for that, and on a completely confidential basis, you're happy to share anything you would like us to have a look at, which you felt you might appreciate some assistance. We can further look at that, and we can put in place what we class as like a scoping call, which is still free of charge, but it's just help us to understand the overall requirements. And then we can obviously put together a customized package to suit your needs and present options to you. And it's only if you then accept things at that stage that what we would do is then invite you to meet with also our office manager over there, and we'd obviously then we start to put in place a proper strategy to put things there for you. And what we've done is we've created, I won't go into some detail particularly tonight, but I'll just touch on it. We've created like a starter package, which enables people for very relatively low cost just to get started, which is basically £245 plus a £50 getting started discount. Still backed by the guarantee, and it's just a way that people can get started in much greater depth with myself, and you can get to know someone over there who would take responsibility for the tasks, but also include 5 hours of virtual assistance at a time, and you'd have access to your own WhatsApp group for personal communication, and it would include a review meeting as well. And the idea of that is just to give people a bit of a taste if they want to get started. But initially, what I'm really interested in is just having a discovery call, seeing whether there's a bit of a match there, and assisting. And if you or anyone you know is interested in exploring this, very simply, it's just a case of going to, if you want to scan this QR code with your phone, or if I put this in the chat now, if I can do it, maybe a second. If you were to click on that link in the chat, that opens up Linktree, which is the same as if you scan the QR code, and you've got access to 4 different menu options there. One is to join the Wealth Growth Club, which the WhatsApp group, which I think you're already a member of. Also gives you a link for joining the 7 o'clock calls on Wednesdays, and also gives you direct access to our YouTube channel. And if you want to book a 30-minute call, literally it's a case of clicking that bottom button, and then it ties in with my Calendly link, and we go from there.